Hey guys, this is Josh
And Carolyn.
with Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat Food for Thought.
This week we're talking about some of our thoughts and musings here on the homestead as we're moving into the fall season pretty solidly here right now.
We are ruminating. We're going to just be ruminating a bit today and thinking about, the past year a little bit. It's not the end of the year yet, but there's a lot been going on. So anyways, we're just going to dive into Josh and Carolyn's mind a little bit and see what shows up. That might be scary.
We'll see what happens.
But first, do we have a little chit chat? I guess we kind of turning this around.
I think we're going a little backwards because I think we're going to ruminate and chit chat kind of most of the time. So I think, let's jump right in to a question of the day. And then we'll just kind of get into chit chat as our musings.
We're finding our stride on this new format. We got a lot of good feedback last time from the last session, and so we're going to roll with it. You keep telling us if this is working for you and enjoyable. We obviously wanted to bring good value to you. So, anyways, question of the day.
Question of the day. This one's for you on the Make Your Own Compost video. This person says, as somebody with zero gardening experience, I've wanted to learn more about composting. My only concern is whether or not this will attract rats, as unfortunately there have been some pretty bad rat problems in our neighborhood the past couple of years. Any advice on how to mitigate this? Maybe limit food scraps or find a way to encase it without cutting off too much oxygen? Thanks for the video.
Yeah, you bet. There's a few different things you can do depending on your situation. First one, you didn't mention whether you had other animals like chickens or pigs or not. If you do, running your food scraps through the pigs and the chickens first is a great way to deal with that, and then use their manure to go into the compost pile. That way you're getting a couple uses out of that, right? That food, you're getting several. You've eaten it, you've got some waste, you feed the animals, you use their waste to make the compost that then feeds the garden that feeds you. So nice cycle there. So that's option one. I realize you might be gardening, you might not have that option, and so there's a couple others. One would be to build your bin with, say, half-inch hardware cloth. Hardware cloth is a little harder cloth with only half-inch gaps. You can get 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, half-inch should be adequate for rats. They're not going to chew through it. It's a little sturdier than, say, chicken wire, which is a lot of people use for that. So hardware cloth, about half-inch, to make yourself a container to put that in. The other thing you can do is go ahead and mix it in with higher carbon materials or bury it in higher carbon materials. That gets a little more complex as if you're trying to set aside your food scraps to build your compost pile. That kind of makes it a little harder to follow a general recipe like you might have seen I've done or Noah Sanders over at School of Nutritional Skills or whatever method you're using. But you can bury it in carbon. This is what we do when we butcher animals and we want to compost their waste. We mix it in and then we cover it almost with like a heavy carbon blanket, and it keeps everything out of it. It's just enough carbon that it diminishes the smell. So that's probably your last resort, but either of those ways will work. If you don't have chickens, get chickens and give them the food scraps.
There you go.
Save your feed bill and still turn it into compost.
All right.
Yep.
Good thoughts.
All right.
This week, the Pantry Chat has been brought to you by our sponsor, Azure Standard.
Thank you, Azure.
Thank you, Azure.
Appreciate you guys.
We love getting to have Azure as a sponsor. We've said it before. We'll say it again, I'm sure. But we have used Azure Standard personally for bulk purchases, for bulk groceries, and regular groceries. So not just only bulk. We buy all sorts of things from them.
If we're not raising it on the homestead, growing it on the homestead, Azure's often our first go-to.
It's kind of the go-to spot.
To fill in the blanks that we don't have here. And then, if they don't have it, we'll look somewhere else. But they're usually our first go-to.
They really are. And so we've been using them for probably about 18 years now, the best I can remember all the way back. I cannot actually remember our first Azure drop. I was trying to think of that the other day. But they have consistently had really great quality with really good prices, and I love it that when you're a member of the co-op, you actually get your food delivered to your area, so you're not paying for all the shipping, which is great. You actually go pick it up from a a co-op drop from a truck, which is just a really great way to go. One, you get to know other people in your community who might be like-minded, and you can make a lot of great community resources that way. But it's also a really good way to just save money on bringing those groceries in that you just can't get really great options for from right where you're at, or you just don't want to go to the grocery store. That's how I feel. I just like to limit going to the grocery store.
The more we can, the better off we all are, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I would rather support Azure in a family, not a multinational industrial big box store. I don't know who owns it, where the money goes. Certainly we try to start with local, but Azure for us is regional, but it's also American, good quality, and so if we've got to put our money somewhere,
It's a good way to go.
I'd prefer to see it go to a fantastic family business and all the hardworking people there. And so I want to encourage you to, and they are giving you guys
15% off.
to new customers with the code Homesteading Family 15.
Yay!
We'll have all that information in the notes for you.
Sounds good.
Good.
All right,
right.
here we
So
are.
life is rolling along. And
What are you up to?
what am I up to? Well, you know, fall is here, and so it's now the push to get things done before winter settles in.
Right.
And to start wrapping up projects. Certainly the harvest is on, you're dealing with that. We're not processing animals yet other than chickens. We have one more round of chickens, and then we'll be thinking about processing.
And turkeys.
And turkeys.
Yep.
And then we'll be thinking about processing sheep later this month. And pigs, we've got about 5 pigs to process this year.
That's exciting.
We're going to do them all in-house. We kind of go back and forth. We prefer doing them in-house when we can. I think we're going to try to make the time this year. We just are always so much happier with the results.
We really are.
When we do them ourselves. You know, so it's really a lot of just getting through fall, wrapping up projects, and then the added, not just thought of winter coming, but we are taking a 7th year, a sabbatical, if you will, not in any technical legal sense, but taking a rest. Now, we're not stopping homesteading and we're not stopping pantry chats or anything, but we are stopping major projects and you know, limiting some of our work, not speaking or traveling or anything like that, and slowing down a little bit. So it's interesting to be wrapping up, starting to think about wrapping up this fall, but not just wrapping up projects for the winter, but going, okay, we're not going to actually tackle anything major for a whole nother season. And so that's got a whole nother element of it to concern and to think about, to process.
I think giving some context to that, you know, we moved in here
2018
we're
into
wrapping
our
up our 6th year here, right? Full year.
6th full season.
And you guys will understand if you've moved on to property anywhere, it has been like go, 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 go as fast as we can to get the infrastructure set up, to get the systems in place, to improve the soil in the pasture and get the fencing where we need it to be. It's like there's always these new projects just to get everything kind of set up and running correctly. And it's time to slow down and take a little break.
Well, and backstory a little bit. You know, we've been on this journey for 20 years-ish. And prior to 2018, we hadn't found home. You know, once we left home in California, and that was a journey, and not to go through all of that, but that was a journey even getting up here into Idaho. We leased for several years, and it was 2018 that we bought this place that we believe that we are home. We are not going anywhere. This will be the kids one day, assumably, and so we knew we were going to pour our hearts into this. And that we needed a self-control, a stopgap.
Right.
and so we said, well, 6 years, you know, 7-year rest is a good idea. That's something biblical, not something we need to follow legally, but it's a good concept, a good idea. So let's just pour our hearts, our resources into it for 6 years, and then let's take a break and just kind of look and go to maintenance level, status quo, and reflect back, think about what we've done, and then think back about the next, you know, probably 6 years if this is working. So we're here, we've arrived
and
at that
and
thought.
it's a good thing. It's good timing. I know when you first said that, I kind of laughed. I was like, oh yeah, right. We're going to take a break. Like, when do we ever take a break? And as we've gotten closer and closer to it, I've been looking more and more forward to this year of like resting, slowing down a little bit, having a little bit more time to contemplate and just to enjoy the progress we've already made. You know, it's so easy just to get running and like, phew, okay, finish that major project we've been looking forward to. I think I have a few minutes to start the next project. Like, you know, like not even take the time to appreciate what we've accomplished or what's happening around us. And so taking that moment to slow down, really enjoy it is nice. It's going to be good. This is going to force us to do it, but it's also going to force us to slow down the output of resources and let the bank account catch up because, you know, project after project takes its toll. And it's like, let's refill the savings accounts a little bit and do some of those things. But also really to have a few moments to like live with things the way they are right now and to contemplate the next season.
Yeah.
And like, what do we really need to do to have this place set up the way we want it? And what are our goals? You know, have they shifted since we moved in? So it's a good moment to like check in with ourselves, check in with each other. We now have adult children who are on the homestead.
Grandbaby on the way.
Grandbaby just any week now. We're waiting to baby to show up. And, you know, so the needs of the families and the goals of the family has started to maybe shift a little bit as we have more adult voices in the house and like taking stock of those things. Where does everybody see the homestead going? And I think it's going to be a really valuable year. But I also have, I shouldn't like put a cursing on our year or anything by saying this.
Please don't.
I have a feeling that like things are still going to break. Systems are still going to need being fixed. Like there's still going to end up being projects.
There's still stuff to do.
I'm making
it doesn't
sure
stop.
to not go into this year thinking vacation because that's not what it's going to be. There'll still be a cow to milk. There'll still be gardens to be tended,
Animals
and
to
planted,
rotate and move, fencing
food to be
put
preserved.
up,
Yeah.
take down.
All of the pieces, and will still be those emergency like, oh, you know, we just broke a pipe or whatever. Hopefully not. Whatever happens. But we'll be in a lot better position to deal with that because we won't be, you know, quite so spread out.
That will be interesting to see. When we feel like we are in a better position to deal with those things, that will be interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm finding myself challenged as we approach this. I'm excited like you for the break, for the time to reflect. Yeah, because as homesteaders, and I found myself saying this to people a lot lately, I don't know a homesteader that's not hardworking.
Yeah.
That's not willing to get after it. I think our problem is often we just work so hard and get after it so much that we don't take as much time to think, to process, to plan, to develop systems
To enjoy.
as we could. And, well, yeah, and to enjoy the journey. And but as we're thinking about doing that, I'm finding myself challenged. One, like, okay, now I want to cram a whole lot of things in that I really want done. And
This year, before the end of our year.
Right. So that has its
Yeah.
own intensity and having to navigate just the reality. There's still only so much I can get done, that we can get done, but things we'd like set up for next year. There's the other reality of projects and things that, you know, other people are involved in. Like we're clearing land right now.
Right.
And we've done a lot of ourselves. We've had to bring in a little bit of equipment. And I was hoping to get all the stumps cleaned up. That takes a special piece of equipment because we're trying not to pull all the stumps, leave the soil intact, and you can have those ground down in this area. Well, the guy doesn't look like he's going to be able to get here this fall. And he said spring, and that's like one of the things that's like, so like, I'm like, oh man, well, it's not really my work. It's hiring somebody else, but we weren't going to really hire somebody else because I don't really want to deal with contractors. But I really want that to move forward. Anyways, so there's going to be things like that to wrestle with in this. And so it's interesting because there's going to be, I'm finding that reality of like you laughing and going, yeah, right, we're not going to do projects, sure.
Right.
And like, okay, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
And where do we just say, this is just it? Even if it's, you know, hiring somebody else to do the work, we're not going to do it. Or even if it's smaller, but, you know, not essential for maintenance.
Right.
You know, And I'm already finding the challenge in that.
Drawing the right lines there and
Yeah.
figuring out what they
Yeah.
are. Well, the other side too is, I know you guys are feeling this. There is this pressing feeling of the state of the world,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Of like, oh my goodness, we need to be even more prepared than we are. We need to keep getting these systems into place. And that urgency, I guess, that is out there, it just takes a quick perusal through the news and you start going, okay, put the headlines down, number one, because they're not helping us be any less stressed or get anything done. Were you going to say the opposite?
Well, did you see the article I sent you this morning
Yeah.
on packaged foods? And they're finding there's like 14,000 different chemicals in the different packaged foods that come in direct contact with our food when we buy food. They're finding like 25% of that in the food that means we're consuming.
Right.
It's stuff like that
Well,
you're like,
they're finding it in our bodies.
yeah, they're finding it in our bodies.
In
So
our
it's getting
bodies.
through our food into our bodies. And it's stuff like
Yeah.
that. And this is even recycled cardboard and paper, things that we think like, hey, we're doing a good job. At least we're moving away from plastic and doing this. And they're actually some of the worst offenders. And it's just stuff like that. It's like, oh man, we got to double down. We got to,
we
you
gotta
know,
do
I
more.
mean, we got our stuff we buy too. And yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
those type of headlines, like you're
Well,
saying,
yeah.
you know.
But they make you, want to put the headlines down and go get back to work and get your systems developed,
Right.
right? Because it's like, I got to just keep going. And so that even for us, even though we feel like we're, a lot further ahead than maybe we were in our journey 20 years ago, we have a lot of systems in place, we're a lot more prepared, that feeling still weighs on us. And so looking around and seeing our weaknesses and going, are we really going to watch, are we really just going to sit here for a year and not progress these systems as we're watching the world get a little less stable every single year? Hopefully, I'm hoping, hopefully it'll just get a little less stable not next year and not drop off a cliff somewhere. But it's interesting.
Yeah, you
it's a
gotta ignore
challenge,
the predictions.
because there's always those things.
Yeah.
There's always those things. And right now, yeah, it feels a little poignant in history, and I know a lot of people are feeling that way. And yet, they're always the things that are like, ooh, this doesn't look so good, and this doesn't look so good, and what if this happens? And I don't think we can live our life based around those things as a fear driver,
And I think you come to the heart of the issue that as you were walking down this path and discussing this, that there becomes an element of faith. If we're not going to live in fear, I think there's being wise about the times, there's being responsible, but we have to balance that with not walking in fear. And, for me, for us, that is our faith. That is knowing that we are not the end all here, and what we do day by day, year by year is not the end all. There's a lot of goals. There's a lot of things we want to do. I think there is being wise about the times. But our belief in God's plan and what He's doing in this world gives us faith that it's okay, because there's other parts, of wisdom besides being wise about the times.
Yeah. Right.
And trusting.
Yeah.
And trusting in the Lord. And, He tells us to take a break, hence sabbatical. Again, when we're not talking about this in a Jewish law sense, we're talking about principles of what God's given mankind, resting on the seventh day, that have wisdom in them, that are wise to follow and to think about, and that we're experimenting with, thinking about on this bigger way, because rest is important. Rest is good, even in the face of challenges. Even in the face of big challenges.
In the chase,
Maybe so. Yeah, we don't
case
know.
of
And that's just it. We
challenges.
don't know.
We don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
If we don't go forward with faith.
But I think this is part of we talk about taking inventories of things. We take inventories of the supplies that we have. But I think, inventorying where you're at and where your people are at as far as emotionally, energy-wise, motivation-wise, all those things, it's really important. And understanding, we've talked about this a little bit recently of, this idea that what Joel Salatin's number is that the average homesteader burns out after 7 years or something like that.
6 or 7 years
Six or 7
is,
years.
some research that he came up with.
And that, you get tired. This is a demanding life. Instead of choosing to spend our weekends out, boating on the lake, or doing whatever people do. I don't actually know what normal people do. We're deciding we're going to go butcher all the chickens, on our spare time, and harvest the garden or plant the garden. It's demanding, and it's just important to be taking that into consideration on our energy level and the energy of the people around us, of just like, where do we need to slow down? Where do we need to take a break? So that we can keep going long term. It's a long term game. It's not a short term game.
I think hence God's plan to give humanity and even the Israelites, where he gave specific law to, periods of rest.
Yeah.
Because it's essential
for
us to do no matter what. So we're fleshing that out a little bit. I want to take a little bit different turn.
Okay.
On this subject still, but knowing now that we're taking a break, and you and I don't think have really had this conversation, so we'll have it right here a little bit. What is important to you, and I think this will benefit the audience.
Oh.
What is the top of your list right now, knowing that we're taking a break next year to get done? And I'm thinking less like household improvement and stuff, because we have some of those things. But what's important to you? What is it, thinking of 2025, there's a lot of sentiment. There, you could say predictions that 2025 has got some major events coming. Aware of those. I think there's some good plausibility to them. We don't know the future. So kind of putting in context that we're in a political year, that's going to shift. There's some thoughts of economic shifts and different things in 2025. So deal with the realities that we know are on a lot of our minds. And yet we're going to take this break. To you, what are some things that you're hoping will accomplish before we wind down by the end of the year?
I just had something stand out to me the other day that actually shocked me when I realized it about us. And that is that for as much as we live prepared, we actually don't have some of the basic, emergency preparedness things dealt with. Like following the standard advice. We've got water pretty well dealt with around here. We've got good water. Well. We're actually pretty good on food. But some things like a basic list of who to call, like all the phone numbers for the household, so that people know, can the kids access the vet phone numbers or the plumber phone numbers if we're out of the house and there's all of a sudden an emergency of some sort? Does everybody know where the water and electrical shutoffs are and how to turn on the generator? And kind of taking care of some of those things and really looking over some stuff like basic first aid supply. We have a lot of herbal medicine stuff around, but there are times where what you need is a tourniquet, like you got to stop something from going wrong. Do we know, do we have those on hand? Does everybody who's kind of an adult in the house know how to access those things and to use them?
And to use them.
And how to use them in a basic way.
The skill to go with it.
So to me, that really actually struck me that we used to be, when we lived more in the city, when we were a little more suburban, especially when we were in the middle of Southern California, we actually had those things dialed in a lot more. And I think it's because it felt more like the thing we could do there.
Well, you also felt like you needed a little more plan B, and I think you do. Our plan B is our plan A because we live in plan B.
Right.
So I think that leads to maybe a little complacency, a little what you're noting on some of these things that we don't deal with every day as much, the food and the water and the power that, we all have got pretty we feel pretty confident about.
Right.
Where are these other gaps that are those things that don't come up all the time, but boy, if they come up, you want to be ready for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
That's
Good
one
thoughts.
thing that's kind of really surfaced as being a little top of the list for me, is kind of getting some of those things in order.
Yeah.
What about for you?
That's good. I don't know. I was trying to
You
process
can't ask
what
me on the
I
spot and then
know.
say,
Well,
I
I'm
don't know.
thinking because it was just something I realized that you and I have not talked about directly. I mean, we've talked about some of the big things and the big, projects and, some things that would make life a little more relaxing next year when we are, taking it off, and some of our home improvement stuff. But those are all non-essentials. We hadn't really talked about this kind of stuff.
No,
So,
you haven't.
I think for me, and I think we don't quite have it covered, and that is reproducing animals. We've worked hard, and it's a pain. It's a lot to have this many animals and having a male counterpart, not just raising feeders across the board. And I'm gonna have to get a bull no matter what. But
gonna have to get a
so
bull.
that's one on my mind, wanting to just have that redundancy in
Yeah.
place solidly.
Well, we have a ram. We have a good
We have a
ram
ram.
that I think will go a nice long time.
We're having more success with the pigs breeding right now.
We are, yay.
It is getting more
That's
successful.
good.
Still got
And
its challenges.
We have a boar,
We do.
so that's good.
Yep. And
We're about to retire this year's bull.
which was he was already getting retired. So
He was what do you call a pinch hitter?
he was a pinch hitter because we
There we go.
retired our longtime bull last year because it was time. Yeah, and didn't find what we were looking for this year, so
Right.
we got a pinch hitter. And he will be Burger, hopefully service our girls and be Burger. And so that's my big one because
So
we rely
really,
heavily on beef.
It's the goat buck that has kind of given us a little bit of a challenge.
He is. I guess I look at that as
We don't
Abigail's
have one.
project,
That's why
and we're
it's
not
giving us a challenge.
we're not reliant on that for our food. Where our dairy cows, getting them bred, and our beef cows, we are reliant on our dairy and our beef, and that's for our household. Those are a huge component to food security. So that bull is a key component.
the bull is really the thing.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So you want to figure out bringing a bull in.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to get to that before the end of the year. Is that okay to do next year on our program? You know,
Being able to breed all your cows may just be part of maintenance mode.
I think it might be.
That's
Yeah.
important.
So I guess it's just thinking through those things. You know, those types of systems that allow us to just to go on. I really like your thought about the about the emergency supplies. That's a good one. That's definitely a gap. I think there's some training, that we could be doing.
Yeah.
I guess in our own gaps. So, but it's maybe some skill set. Even home defense, self defense is something I think about. That like that medical training. It's like that thing that you're rarely ever going to use. Man, when you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
And
That's a
so.
good point. So let me ask you a question then, a different question.
Okay.
What are you most looking forward to in the break year?
I am looking forward to just not having major projects. So many big projects, the pressure of so much to get done. There's the homestead life without the project. The big projects is good, but we've, like Carolyn was saying, we've done earthworks, we've done major fencing projects, barn additions for several years, home additions, land clearing.
Putting in orchards, putting in gardens.
Yeah. Planting. We've planted over 20 trees each year the last 2 years. And still want to get more trees in. But I think it's just, it's really not the work as it is much the decision, the amount to track it, and the decisions to get made to get all this stuff done along with the work. And I do think that's going to take the pace down.
Yeah.
And just the normal homestead is going to be a little bit of okay, this is a different pace. And so it's really just managing all of the stuff that we set out to do in the first 6 years. And we've done a lot. We've done a really, really good job and set this place up well. And I'm very happy with it. But yeah, looking forward to just less big projects.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. Well, there's some food for thought for y'all.
Uh-huh.
This was fun to unpack a little bit.
Yeah. Definitely. Lots to think about. And I guess we'll keep thinking about it.
Well, I think that for you and I, the takeaway maybe is we need to sit down together and get our heads together and think this through a little bit more about, are there things, do we have expectations that we're not maybe talking to each other on,
Right.
realizing we haven't really talked about this. I know I've been doing my thing and I know you're doing yours, and we have some of the bigger things, but maybe we need to sit down and look at the nuances to make sure that we're lined up going into this year with that, and even like, what is a project?
What counts as a project?
And what is like, nope, not doing it. We got to hold the line. We got to hold each other up, and allow the kids to hold us up,
right?
Or them to not push on us to get something done. They've got their own things they like seeing.
They do.
Moving forward and getting done too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Good hanging out with you guys. We'll be talking to you again really soon.
See you later.
Goodbye.